Zoom meetings we've been on. It's a little bit different from last year. But I think what you'll find in this meeting is that the presentation will be no less exceptional. We've got some really good speakers today that are worth turning into on a number of developing items related to renewable energy, and we'll introduce them in a moment. But I want to just give you a little bit of the lay of the land right now, just to preview it. So we'll handle resolutions. We have three of them. One is we'll get to them in a moment. There are no walk-up resolutions, as we understand it, but three that were submitted in a timely way that we'll go through once we're done with the introductions. A lot's been going on. The staff has been working with staff on the Hill. Conference staff has been working with staff on the Hill on a number of energy-related legislation, and you'll hear a little bit about that when Congressman Tonko comes aboard to talk about a recent bill that is likely to get voted on before the July 4th recess that we want him to offer detail on right now, and because I think it contains a number of really important provisions that are important to us. So the staff has been doing a great deal of work on all that. So we have three speakers. So Congressman Paul Tonko, again, who's been a real leader in the renewable energy space and has not only been a leader in the political sense, but brings tremendous technical knowledge and skill to the subject matter as well. Next, after him, we'll have Brian Wolfe, who is the Executive VP of Public Policy and External Relations at the Edison Electric Institute, whose membership spans the country, mostly utilities. And we've asked him to say a few words today about what the pandemic has meant for the energy industry in general, the electric utility industry, but more specifically, what it means for renewables, for the expansion of renewables. And then last, we have John Hartnett, who is an executive VP at Shell, to talk about not oil, but about offshore wind. Shell, like many of the big oil companies, is diversifying into renewables, including offshore wind. And he is heading up a couple of big projects, including one right here in New Bedford. I think what I've asked him to do today is to fill us in on the latest developments in offshore wind, why it is that big oil is getting involved, and what the next few years look like. So but before we get into that, a couple of things. Dave, you were going to talk. I'm going to introduce Brian in a second, but did you want to offer any preliminary remarks about either the resolutions or any housekeeping matters that we have to address?
I just was going to say real quickly, since we're all doing this through Zoom, what we're doing is we're moving mayors onto video. So if I've not moved you through yet and you want to be on, which will be required for voting, go ahead and use Zoom's hand raising function, and I'll move you on over. Just do your best to keep your audio on mute when you're not speaking, and kind of the normal Zoom etiquette. If you want to register a no vote, you'll still be doing that through the Conference of Mayors mobile app, and you can do co-sponsoring there as well as a voice in this committee. So that's all my brief remarks.
Good. All right. No, thanks, David. I want to thank you and Rich Anderson for setting up this meeting, and I think it's going to go really well. I probably will need a little bit of assistance when it comes to counting votes on resolutions, but otherwise, I don't think I'll need any more hand-holding. And then we also have Tim Wynn on, who's our master parliamentarian. Every time Tim is on with us, he does a fabulous job, and I can't refrain from reminding him that Robert's Rules of Order originated in New Bedford. So just in case you forgot, Tim. I just want to kick things off by first thanking Tom and the staff for keeping everything going, pushing out relevant information to mayors, making us more effective along the way, Tom, and it's been really helpful to us. And I want to say too that this is the occasion where we won't have Brian Barnett to kick around anymore. This is his swan song. It's been a most memorable year in his presidency, not in ways that he ever anticipated, but Brian's done a fabulous job in facilitating the flow of information out to us, keeping it relevant, keeping everybody on their toes, but keeping it light too, and keeping it positive. And it's made a big difference, Brian, I will say, over the course of especially the last couple of months. The regularity of the meetings, of the calls on Fridays, bringing in really important speakers that have helped us get our heads around a crisis the likes of which we couldn't anticipate. All of us in different parts of the country have prepared for weather events and even mass shootings, other emergencies, but pandemic was not on the list, anybody's list when they became mayor. And so we've had to adjust, and you've played a big role in it. So my friend, I'll turn it over to you for some remarks that are both opening remarks and closing remarks, I suppose.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that, John. Thanks for your friendship. I have always wanted to visit New Bedford until you just said that that's where Robert's rules came from, and now I have absolutely no interest. I couldn't think of anything worse to come from a city than Robert's Rules of Order. So that's on you, my friend. Listen, so many friends on the phone. I apologize in advance to Christian or Chris and to Kim, who've heard this little message. I think I've seen both of you the last couple of days, but just want to thank all of you. And 360 some days ago, in my good friend Mayor Caldwell's incredible town, I assumed the great honor of being president of this organization, and it's been a really exceptional year. I hope in all things, and I'll make this very brief, that you've found the conference to be a valuable partner and something, and an organization that not just is about emails and phone calls, but it's hopefully sets you up for good relationships with some of the other faces on the screen. I see my buddy, well, I don't see my buddy Joe, but I see Joe and Brian and Carolyn and so many, and Rosalind, we've been texting even today. Thank you for the friendship. Thank you for the support, Michael, as well. You guys have been such great friends through all of this. We have a busy last week. As you know, this I think is the 5th or 6th time I've had a meeting with Tom Cochran and David Burns this week. But all of our committee meetings are meeting, and you're all doing a great job. Appreciate you keeping the conversation going. And Mayor Mitchell, to put together the speakers that you have is really exceptional. Maybe the most robust group of speakers of any committee so far, which really extends the relevance of this, of the work of this committee and the value of the Conference of Mayors in a time where we can't meet physically and are forced to sort of do this virtually. Just want to say a couple quick things to bring your attention to this, and then I'll end with a quick comment. Number one, last week, the nominating committee met on Friday and put forward a slate of new officers. That slate will be voted on next Tuesday, the 30th. The officers being proposed for elevation, of course, Greg Fisher to be president, Nan Whaley to be first vice president, Francis Suarez from Miami to be our second vice president, 2 new trustees, Mayor Cabalden from West Sacramento and Mayor Holt from Oklahoma City. And then a slate of 6 new advisory committee members. I said it reads like the NFC in the NFL. It's Seattle, Dallas, Chicago, Tampa, New Orleans, and then I'm sure soon to get an NFL team, Huntington, West Virginia. But those are the 6 that were recommended for the advisory board, and great mayors from all those different cities. We look forward to their contribution to the organization. And speaking of the organization, I'm going to use my last 10 days to profusely thank all of the folks there. On this call, it's the amazing Rich Anderson, who I've worked with through the Flint water crisis, who I've seen step up in so many ways for me personally here in our region, and for many of you in different ways as well. You're a treasure trove of information, Rich. We're blessed to have you as a part of our team, and thank you for your continued support of mayors and of our conference. And of course, there's no one more well-known and well-respected in Washington than Tom Cochran, and appreciate his leadership and guidance. I learned a lot of new phrases. I learned as exciting as cream of celery soup last week. So there's always something to learn from Tom, and he keeps you on your toes. And without his leadership, we wouldn't be who we are today. Listen, next week, we've got two important dates I would encourage you to write on your calendar. The first is the 30th, Tuesday the 30th, where the executive committee will meet and will put forward and vote on all of these resolutions put forward by your committee and the other 9 committees as well as the recommendation of the nominating committee. And then on July 1st at noon Eastern time, which I think, Kirk, for you is 4 a.m. or something ridiculous, we're going to have our virtual plenary session. And that's where I'll give a final speech summarizing the year. We'll have a couple of videos, and then Mayor Fisher will launch into where he hopes to take us into the next year as we transition presidencies. So I sure hope you're able to join us. Wake up early, Kirk, and the rest of you can join us around noon Eastern time for that. Listen, I have to jump on. It's budget week here at the City of Rochester Hills, so I've got to jump on a couple other meetings. But I'll just end by quickly saying thank you. Thank you for this privilege. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope you felt the conference has wrapped its arms around you to help you be a better mayor. If there's anything I can do personally, please let me know. We appreciate your support of this organization and wish you a great meeting today. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for your leadership. All right. All right. With that, so we'll go right into resolutions. There are a few things that I have to read into the record, and then we'll jump to the first resolution, which concerns energy efficiency and conservation block grants. So let me just highlight a few things before we jump in. You can still co-sponsor a resolution. You just have to have it in by June 30th. You can do that on the app, or you can send in an email. You can use the same app that we're all familiar with, or the website to vote no as well, or on any given resolution. And that's up through July 1. And then, so for those mayors who are on the screen or in our meeting right now, you can speak to any resolution or ask a question just by unmuting your line. Dave Burns gave you those directions at the outset. But the only folks who can vote on a resolution are the mayors that are members of the Energy Committee. So we've got 3 resolutions, 2 of which have been previously submitted. And the first is one concerning the Energy Block Grant Program. So what I'll do is I'll give a short description, and then if anybody wishes to be heard on them, I'll call on you. Otherwise, then we'll just go straight to a vote. So the first one, as I said, concerns the first one is a resolution that's been passed before, and it concerns the conference's support for the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program. This is also a resolution that is shared with the Environment Committee. It calls on Congress to reauthorize and fully appropriate the block grant program in the next COVID-19 recovery bill or other appropriate legislative vehicle. Again, you'll hear more from Representative Tonko about that. And you have, I believe, the resolution in your hands. It was sent out earlier. And so I'll open up the floor to questions and just ask Dave Burns to tell me if anybody has a question or a comment on the resolution.
Good.
Mayor Bolwage.
Yep.
Thanks.
Oh, Mayor Bolwage, you need to unmute.
Mayor, you're on mute.
I'm technologically challenged. So, hey, Mr. Chairman, how are you? I would like to be added. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor, John, to Resolution 26, with your permission. I'm not a member of the committee, but with your permission, I'd like to be added.
Yeah, I don't, Dave, I think the mayor can just do that by, maybe that's good enough. I don't know. Tell me.
Yep, that's good. That's good enough.
Good
We'll do it on the other side.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
Dave.
Mayor.
Yeah, for that matter, add me, Dave, if you would. As well.
Sounds
Why
good.
not, right? You know, I was disappointed that Mayor Bullwidge's background did not include a set of golf clubs, but he has the next best thing, which is a picture of a golf course. Well done. There it is. All right. Any other comments or questions on the motion? Okay. Hearing none. So Dave, tell me how we should go about voting. Is it in the chat function?
Go ahead and
Someone's got to
yeah,
go.
just raise your hand.
raise
Say
your
when you-
hand.
when
Raise your hand, and Dave will acknowledge you if you raise your hand. That means
All in
yes.
favor. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
All right, Dave, you got that?
Got it.
Any
All right, and,
opposed? Any opposed?
Any opposed? No.
Motion
so-
passes.
Measure passes. Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody. So we'll turn to resolution number 27. Which would require the U.S. Department of Energy to focus on the safe treatment and storage of radioactive waste on site where appropriate to mitigate health and environmental risks of transporting low, high, mixed level waste to offsite treatment facilities. So it's a little bit of a mouthful, but it's best explained by Mayor Goodman, who has promoted this resolution successfully over the last several years. So Mayor Goodman, I'll just turn to you just to give us a quick synopsis.
Thank you so very much, Mayor. And this really is just continued confirmation of what's best for the country, all of our communities and residents. We can't afford to have any spillage. And unfortunately, as we all know, with the financial constraints around the country because of COVID-19, I'm sure the monies that the administration had intended to put into infrastructure improvement, that is really not happening at the rate and the breadth that we needed to happen. So we're still in a compromised infrastructure problematic area. We're rated a D, and so that does continue. So to me, I'm just hopeful you all see the value of keeping all this low, high, mixed level waste to off-site treatment facilities on site, as it says in this resolution.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that summary, and thank you for obviously for your leadership on this matter over the years. I'll just open it up for questions or comments to the committee.
I have a
on the
comment,
committee. Yep.
Mayor Paul. I was shocked when I opened it up and saw this because I remember my first conference in Vegas, and this was on at that time. And I was really surprised to see that nothing had been done and that you're continuing. And I want to thank Mayor Goodman for her stick-to-itiveness, and I think she's doing a great job. And of course, I just wanted to make that observation. I'll be supporting it.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I can't tell you how significant it is for all of us around the country and for every small community through which these really critical and detrimental pieces of whatever you want to call it could pass. So thank you for being with us. And as you may recall, those of you who've been in service in any way or alive, my husband was mayor from 99 to 2011. So we've been at this now for 20 years, just pounding this to death and hopeful that every community will get repaired bridges, tunnels, roads, rail, and everything. It's a necessity that hasn't been attended to for decades. So thank you so much.
Good. Thank you, Mayor. All right. Any other questions or comments on the matter? Okay. Hearing none. So Dave will go ahead and put it to a vote. So if you are in favor of the resolution, which is number 27, raise your hand. Got it, Dave?
Yep.
Okay, any opposed?
Motion passes.
Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Goodman, as always, for sticking with this. It's not just a Las Vegas issue, it's a national issue. All right, so the next item is, and the last resolution is number 50, which is titled Supporting Global Cities-Led Movement to Divest from Fossil Fuels and Invest in Climate Solutions. This has been promoted by Mayor de Blasio and co-sponsored by a number of mayors who are listed, including me. And it's the resolution in summary strongly urges cities across the globe to explore divesting from fossil fuels and investing in climate solutions to support a green recovery and a just transition. I will tell you, at least for my part, that I'm willing to support this as a symbolic gesture to support a real, what I think would be a real boost to our efforts to combat climate change. It does not bind cities in any way. The language is pretty clear that the conference strongly urges cities to to think about divesting, to explore divesting, to quote it verbatim. So it's not binding in that way, and so in that sense, it's not that it would be as a resolution anyway, but the language is fairly soft. So in any case, that's the long and short of it. I don't know whether Mayor de Blasio or any of the other sponsors are on. I'd open it up to them if they wanted to say a few words about it. Dave, do you know if any of them are on the call?
I don't see anyone right now.
I don't either. I don't see it.
All right, does anybody else want to weigh in on this resolution?
Yes, I'd like to make a comment. I have been in conversation with Mayor de Blasio's office about this. And at this point, I'd like to let it be known that I would like to be added as a sponsor.
Okay.
Thank you.
And John, this is Kirk Caldwell from Honolulu. I also would like to be as a sponsor. I think we already weighed in, but I did want to speak in support of the resolution. And for the city and county of Honolulu, we're part of a state retirement fund. All the counties are. There's only 4 counties, and through our efforts, we've gotten the state to divest. So now they only hold about 1.94% of their entire portfolios in oil and gas. They're out of all their investment otherwise. And on Oahu right now, there's about 2,000 jobs in fossil fuel and electricity sector, and about 15,660 renewable energy jobs. So almost 8 times as many. It is, I think, the way to go. And about 8 months ago, the city and county of Honolulu joined other, I think, forward-leaning cities in doing big oil because of the effects of climate change and what we're dealing with in terms of having to rebuild our infrastructure. And we hope other cities will join in that effort in the future. But we want to thank Mayor de Blasio for, taking charge on this. And I think it's the appropriate thing to do for all of our cities around the country. With that, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak. Over.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Kirk. Anybody else on the resolution? Okay, hearing nothing. So we'll go ahead and vote. Raise your hand to indicate support for the resolution.
Measure passes, Mayor.
Okay, you got that? So passes?
Got it.
Got it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just as a procedural matter, could you
Yes.
please call if there for any of those opposed?
Yes. So just for the record, are there any opposed? Okay. Any? Do we have any, Rich?
No opposed. That's it.
Okay.
That was the last one.
Okay. All right, so very good. Well, thank you, everyone, for weighing in. We don't have any new resolutions to consider today, so we'll go right ahead and introduce our first speaker. I don't know whether Congressman Tonko is on as yet. David.
I am.
He's here.
David.
I am.
He is. There he is.
Yes.
Very
Hey, gentlemen.
good. Well, welcome, Congressman.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for,
much, man.
Thank you for joining us. And I want to just give you a quick intro just to set the table a little bit. So Congressman Paul Tonko has been a member of the House since 2000, or elected in 2008, so in your sixth term. And before that, he held a number of positions, including local government. He was also the president of NYSERDA. And so before you got on, I told everybody you knew everything that anyone would want to know about renewable energy. We're afraid to ask. But you've been a leader in this space for a number of years. You and I had the pleasure of meeting when I testified on Brownfield's reauthorization before the Environment and Economy Subcommittee a few years ago. I stood
And you did a phenomenal job, too. You did a great job.
Thank you. So, but in any case, it's great to see you again. And one of the hot topics right now, hot off the press, is the new bill that's emerged from a number of committees. I guess you can tell us about the procedural posture, but it's something called Moving America Forward, which will commit $1.5 trillion to a number of the infrastructure priorities that the conference has, including in renewable energy. And so we're dying to hear about what it entails. And so with all that, I'll turn it over to you. But thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your service as a mayor in New Bedford and the neighboring state, or the Commonwealth neighboring to New York. Certainly, I work with my mayors so closely because I think you're the front line in services to the people, and cities undeniably are the hub of our history, our heritage, our services, and we need to be sensitive to your needs because as cities goes to the U.S., and so want to be very strong partners. Having come from local government at the county level, I want to be the best partner I can be. And thank you, Mayor Mitchell, for chairing the committee so that the Conference of Mayors can go forward with sound ideas and progressive approaches to solving the climate crisis. So I thank the Conference of Mayors for being such great partners on so many issues before the Energy and Commerce Committee. We again thank Mayor Mitchell for having participated before our subcommittee hearing. And over the past several years, you've been awesome in your involvement and your input, including improving EPA's Brownfields program, reauthorizing the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, and most recently, advancing a clean energy agenda. I also want to recognize a local mayor who's worked with your organization from New York's 20th Congressional District, that being the mayor of Schenectady, Mayor Gary McCarthy. He's been a leader for smart communities. He's been doing great things in Schenectady, and I hope the federal government can be a better partner to local government to enable more clean energy, data, and resilience projects in cities across our great country. Looking forward, our committee has done a lot of work on developing a national climate legislative framework. We have met with hundreds of stakeholders over the past few years, and I appreciate the conference's willingness to engage in this process. One of my guiding principles for this framework has been how to best empower state and local governments. You are valid, essential partners in this effort. And I want to make certain that the investments and the regulatory policies that we pursue are complementary to all of your outgoing and ongoing hard work. Because I recognize that this administration has not always prioritized the issues that we're talking about here today. Despite that lack of federal leadership, our communities are stepping up and increasing their clean energy and sustainability commitments, which I think is incredibly noteworthy and honorable. I served in county government, as I indicated. I know local elected officials tend to be pragmatic about solving problems regardless of the issue, because ultimately the buck stops with you. And local leaders are often in the best position to enact innovative policies to promote a cleaner economy and make communities more resilient to climate and climate damage. There are many policies strengthening community resilience, increasing energy efficiency through building codes and energy benchmarking, improving the efficiency and operations of municipal buildings, and promoting a cleaner transportation option or options, because there are many now, including transit and pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure that needs to be locally driven. So over the past 2 years, we have heard from experts in the field, experts from across the country. And I am grateful for the conference's input about how best to accelerate local action in support of clean energy. Obviously, our hearing schedule has been upended, and there is uncertainty for that legislative calendar this year. But we have continued to meet with stakeholders and think about the future of federal climate legislation. For the next 6 months, I dare say we plan to continue this work to develop the tools and the policies that will be needed to achieve ambitious climate targets. And it is my belief that this work must be done in a way that is science and evidence-based, with the goal of building a broad coalition of support that can get the 218 votes for passage of a bill in the House. So I do hope we can reach a point where many mayors feel comfortable enough to embrace our final product. We released a discussion draft of legislation back in January, and we've dubbed it the Clean Future Act, which we continue to solicit feedback on. We continue to refine and we continue to expand with the goal to be prepared to legislate comprehensive climate action as soon as possible. That's still the plan, even if our attention has shifted to pandemic response. But I think you all want to hear more about the timelier issue of the infrastructure package that will be before the House next week. In fact, I return today to DC to begin that stretch of votes that we'll have that will include an infrastructure vote. I realize that the stress that is being put upon local budgets due to the COVID pandemic is enormous. For months, I've said our first priority must be to treat the virus. Without that, we cannot begin economic recovery. So the immediate response to date has been to support essential workers, healthcare providers, state and local governments, and ramp up testing. I'm still hoping that the Senate, the United States Senate, takes up the HEROES Act, which would help fill some of these existing and growing budget gaps, providing about over $1 trillion to governments across the country because of the COVID-19 impact and drain on their revenues. But we must also get serious about, I think, a long-term job creation agenda. And we need to only look around the world, including countries that are also responding to the pandemic. Members of the EU, very active in the climate approach. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, the UN, the United Nations being very active, have all been discussing the importance of imbuing economic recovery packages with policies and investments that will support a more sustainable and more resilient economy for the future. There are great opportunities for economic recovery and job creation in clean energy, sustainable and resilient infrastructure, retrofitting buildings, incentivizing advanced manufacturing, including strengthening domestic supply chains and environmental remediation. We will be working on these priorities as we shift our attention from immediate response to economic recovery to enable us to create jobs and build back better in the weeks and the months ahead. And I believe we'll do that with the foundation of a component that's been labeled HR2. So it tells you how high a priority this is. HR2, the House effort for Moving Forward Act, which is scheduled to be considered by the House next week, is our statement on high priority, high need that we respond to with resources and policy. It is my belief that we have a tremendous opportunity to put Americans back to work in the short term while modernizing our infrastructure to achieve a cleaner, more resilient, more competitive, and more just economy. This package takes a very broad view of our nation's infrastructure needs. It includes investments for certain in roads and bridges, but also goes to those important other infrastructure areas of water systems, of broadband, and modernization of the grid. It includes billions of dollars over 5 years for energy efficiency, for weatherization, for grid modernization, to be able to better integrate renewable energy resources, EV charging infrastructure, and ensuring our current and future infrastructure is more resilient. One of the most important items is the reauthorization of the energy efficiency and conservation block grant, of which the mayors were speaking a minute or two ago. EECBG programs are funded in this package for $3.5 billion annually for 5 years. This block grant was created, as you know, in the mold of CDBG and was last funded by the Recovery Act almost a decade ago. And it provided flexible funding for all communities, over 35,000 people, to promote efficiency, to promote clean energy and sustainable development. I think this is the type of program that we need to be reaching to in order to achieve our clean energy and climate goals. It is flexible. It allows each community to prioritize and plan for its unique circumstances. Communities can use this funding to install LED streetlights, to retrofit municipal buildings, or to build EV charging infrastructure or clean energy projects. So I think this is a great inclusion, and I hope it is able to get through the House and be included as part of the future energy negotiations with the United States Senate. In addition to EECBG, the package includes another $10 billion to support building modernization and retrofits that will improve the energy efficiency, health, and resilience of our buildings. This includes programs focused on homes, on schools, and other public buildings. Also, a very strong drain on the energy resources that we can muster. The package also includes more than $38 billion to accelerate the transition to a sustainable transportation system. This includes investments that support the development of a robust network of charging and refueling infrastructure, including deploying infrastructure in underserved areas. It also includes a provision I authored to support build-out through a rebate program to support charging infrastructure at multifamily homes, workplaces, and other publicly accessible locations. This has been a successful model in New York State, my home state, and could enable local governments to install chargers at municipal parking facilities. There is another $3.5 billion to support investments that will improve the reliability, resilience, and security of the electric grid. Grid modernization is necessary to integrate the growing number of renewable and distributed energy resources being added to the nation's electricity mix. The package also includes provisions to support the development of energy storage systems and, of course, microgrids. The package includes $1 billion for grants and other financial assistance to promote solar energy deployment in low-income and underserved areas. Now more than ever, there is a need to ensure that clean energy investments are reaching every neighborhood. Environmental justice needs to be part of our plan, and it is. This is a good down payment to support development of more community solar projects in the underserved areas. There are also long-term extensions of many clean energy tax incentives, including the investment tax credit and the production tax credit. In our division of the bill, there is also a significant increase in funding for drinking water infrastructure, including a focus of getting lead out of schools and remediating PFAS contamination. And there's $2.7 billion for EPA's Brownfields program over the next 5 years to support economic recovery and redevelopment. And finally, the package includes over $100 billion to support broadband deployment. The COVID pandemic has exposed major U.S. economic vulnerabilities, starting with vast gaps in our nation's broadband infrastructure. In my district, I've heard from workers, students, teachers, business owners, healthcare providers, and countless others facing challenges with either being underserved or unserved. This legislation takes long overdue steps to propel America's broadband infrastructure forward for both unserved and underserved areas. While I am not familiar with some of the traditional surface transportation components of the bill, I know that Chairman DeFazio has taken a very forward-looking approach. I don't know the path forward for this $1.5 trillion infrastructure package in this moment, but I will guarantee you that we're certainly going to welcome your partnership on some of these provisions that I've outlined this afternoon. And as we restart the conversation on our nation's long-term clean energy and climate needs, I hope you know that I'm ready to work with you as mayors of great cities across this country, work with you on a strategy and investment that puts an emphasis on locally driven solutions. So I thank you again for the individual mayors that you are and the cumulative impact that you make as a conference of mayors who remind us that the strength of our cities determines the strength of our country. And so I wish you well in your service to America and to your home community. And thank you for taking on the daunting task in these very troubling times and being there for the people that humbly call your assignment home and hometown.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Representative Tonko, and
pleasure.
I have to say, you know, it's almost as though you've been listening in on our committee meetings over the last 5 years.
Oh, that's good. That's
we go right down the list. Yeah, block grants, yes. PTC, ITC, so forth. No, it's this is great stuff. This is the stuff that we've been promoting for a long time. We have a working partner in the administration, and you know the leadership at the federal level has to come from Congress, and you're doing it. And so we're just really grateful that you recognize the wisdom in this, and your word, given your background on these matters, a lot of weight. And so we're deeply appreciative of all of it.
Well,
if you go ahead. I was going to say, if you have some it's a little bit of time just for a couple of questions.
We have I'm going over to another presentation in about 5 or 10 minutes, but we can probably stretch this till 10.
Yeah, so I'll just start it off. I guess one thing that people be wondering about is just the likelihood of ultimate passage. We obviously know that there's work to be done in the Senate. The HEROES Act represents a pretty major piece of legislation, to say the least, as is this one. So how do you see? I mean, I don't. Maybe unfair for me to ask you to handicap it, but how should we be thinking about both of these big pieces of legislation be moving forward?
Well, I think there's been bipartisan appeal of these legislative items, both the HEROES Act and the Moving Forward Act. I think that's been communicated very forcefully to the leadership of the United States Senate. I know that the initial reaction, a knee-jerk reaction, perhaps, I hope, by the U.S. Senate Majority Leader McConnell was like, well, if your states are struggling, file for bankruptcy. They have got to know that's not an answer. They have got to know that. And, there's no denying that the COVID experience is one of the toughest in this country's history, and certainly the toughest in many of our lifetimes. So that being said, there's not much choice here. The economists and even the reserve will tell us, that the Federal Reserve is saying, look, the price tag on these things is frightening. I'll be the first to admit, they're staggering price tags. Doing nothing is an even more costly outcome. And most likely, according to the experts, the damage will be permanent to the economy. So here's a chance for us to, from a federal perspective, assist our friends at state and local levels, re-engineer our approach forward. Look at those dynamics that will grow. And I think there's a good common sense argument that we could all muster based on various perspectives of the items being addressed. But I would just encourage, if we can help work with you, I would encourage your organization to reach out and join the advocacy and write those letters to your given senators and say, look, we need this help. And it appears to me more and more that we're not on the other side of this pandemic. We're in the middle of it. When we see these 20-some states now peaking, when we see the 27 to 39-year-old age group peaking, critically fast, we're in the middle of this pandemic. So we're going to need another shot in the arm, because people are, even with New York and Massachusetts next door, your state, people are still not trusting. They're not comfortable enough to go into some of these group settings. So we've got to have that economic recovery coming from the public sector. And I think those arguments are the winning arguments that have to be shared with the United States Senate.
Well, indeed. No, thank you for that. We can obviously have conference staff who's on right now, Rich Anderson, reach out to your staff about how we can, help evangelize the message. So thank you.
Great. Yeah, my
let me open it up to other mayors on the call for questions. Dave Burns, if you can see any hands being raised that I can't.
No hands being raised, but we were just joined by Second Vice President Mayor Whaley.
Oh, great.
Well, welcome, Nan.
Hi.
Now,
Nice to see you all.
And which city? Oh, Dayton. Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, Dayton, Ohio. It's nice to meet you, and
Nice to meet you.
great to be with all of my great mayor friends as we work through these times of COVID. I really appreciate the chance we actually get to see folks at work during these standing committees. And Mayor Mitchell, appreciate your leadership and thoughtfulness in this work, and great to see you all. So glad to be here to listen.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment and thank the congressman for his leadership? As you know, the energy block grants came forth even in the Bush II administration. And we were very fortunate to have that opportunity to serve this nation through those energy block grants. And we worked hard to get them included in ARA, but we are very, very serious about this and believe that with the congressman's help and also other leaders in Congress, along with Speaker Pelosi, we can move again to really bring these energy block grants into play. And the congressperson is right. We base this on CDBG, but it makes very much sense. And I just want to, as your staff director, thank him and let you know that it's a top priority of our organization.
Great. Well, we know that these block grants mean a lot to the local community. And I think what was most encouraging was that in the ARA legislation, in the Recovery Act, over a decade ago, applications far outweighed the amount of money that was set aside. So that tells us there's a thirst to be innovative and creative and clean in our energy approach. And that's something that I think sharpens our competitiveness. It's something that really provides a competitive edge for our industries and really labels us as strong stewards of the environment. So, I think here's a chance for us to really come back with an economy that is going to focus on the growth of that economy. Pre-COVID-19, it was all in the clean energy sector. And we want to make certain that that is respected by the policies and the resources we dedicate for those efforts.
Yeah, if I could jump in on your point about the pent-up demand, our Energy Committee have done a number of surveys of America's cities over the last 5 years or so about their renewable energy and conservation priorities. And so we have some really good data that I think bolsters that very point. There's a lot of demand for federal resources to do the things that we think could be successful. And when it comes to promoting renewable energy or retrofitting buildings or other conservation measures. So we have that. So we've been talking about these sorts of needs and pent-up demand for a while, and it is very real. Other thing I just ask you to consider too is that during the Obama administration, we had a really good partnership with Secretary Moniz and the folks that he had in charge of DOE's municipal program. At that time, DOE had what I could fairly characterize as a municipal outlook that has been absent in the current administration. And so getting the block grant program to work well will require, capacity and prioritization in DOE that, we haven't seen in a while. So I think that's just, I think it's an important part of, this entire equation.
Absolutely. We can even sense the change from our perspective with the DOE tone, but, it's something that we're going to be challenged to address, and hopefully later this year, we'll get energy behind the energy innovation. So
there you go. With that double entendre, I'll look to if there is any other questions or comments for Congressman Tonko. Anybody else? We want to be respectful of your time, Congressman.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Mayor. It's great to see you again, and thank you for all of you for having such clear-eyed vision on where to take the clean energy agenda. And we want to work with you. Millennials want to locate into cities and go back into these walkable environments. And we have to make certain that you have the tools to retrofit so that you're meeting those demands. And that, I think, provides hope for the growth and capacity and the new day for our cities. So go get them.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Congressman. We appreciate your time, and we'll be in touch. We want to work on this together.
Super. Have a wonderful summer, everybody.
Thank you.
And to the outgoing president, was it Mayor Bennett?
Barnett.
I'm sorry. Congratulations on your service, and to incoming President Fisher.
Yes.
Right.
All the best. So go get them.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. So we will turn to our next speaker, who is Brian Wolfe, who I think we're on. I saw a flurry of chat messages a few minutes ago between EEI and Dave Burns. I think we've succeeded in getting Brian on the line. I mean, there he is.
There I am.
Welcome, Brian. But thanks.
A little bit of a link problem, but I'm good.
That's all right. We'll try to read your lips if we can't hear you.
There you go.
But thank you for joining us. So Brian is Executive Vice President for Policy and External Affairs at EEI. EEI has been a great sponsor of the conference for the last several years and has been very active in the Energy Committee. Brian has a tremendous background on the Hill, as well as a lobbyist, generally recognized and as one of DC's top lobbyists, and which is high praise for sure. But he's, from his vantage point, EEI and he in particular have a view of where the industry is going in light of COVID-19, where the electric utility industry is going, and particularly its continued movement into renewables. COVID-19 obviously has affected every facet of life in America and elsewhere, and the utility industry is no exception. And the effects, the implications of the pandemic in that industry may not be intuitive. And so we wanted to make sure we were hearing from Brian and EEI to start to get our head around those issues and how it might affect policy, including some of the things that we're just talking about with Congressman Tonko. So it's your appearance here is as welcome as it is timely, Brian. So with all that, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mayor Mitchell, thank you for your leadership. I want to thank the mayors. We are honored to serve many of your communities around the country. We represent about 70% of the electric customers in the U.S. But I want to thank you for all of your work. I think the mayor's work is so integral to our communities, especially at this time, but more importantly, just every day. And I just want to give you a little bit of a sense, like Mayor Mitchell said, a little bit of a sense of how the investor-owned electric companies are working and what we're doing with regards to clean energy transformation going on across the country. I want to thank, I wish I could have done it before he jumped off, but Congressman Tonko, and he's chairman of a really important committee on energy and commerce that we're really just so fortunate to be able to interact with daily, actually. But really working to decarbonize the U.S. economy, that clean energy leadership. And he has just been, I can tell you, a real leader during this time when we've been dealing with our workforce during the COVID crisis. So just a shout out to Congressman Tonko. He's really pretty awesome. So he's one of my favorites, and he's visionary in the way that he works. But I kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about our sort of simpatico vision regarding clean energy and the work Mr. Tonko is doing, but also electric transportation. And I'm really glad that he actually brought up broadband. There's 4 areas that I want to cover very quickly. Mr. Mayor, as you pointed out, clearly around the COVID set of issues, how that's affected us, sort of during, and as I would agree with you all, that clearly we're still during this pandemic. And then also, what does it really mean for our clean energy innovation commitment and our agenda there? Because it's such a big part of our focus during this transitional period for us. Also, middle mile broadband. Congressman Tonko brought up broadband, but I want to talk about what our role could be in that in order to deploy out in your communities, particularly in those unserved and underserved communities across the country. And then lastly, I just want to touch on social justice, because really, if we're not leading as an industry and we're not putting actionable plans forward, then we're also not doing our part. So I want to talk about that as well. So I'll start off just talking a little bit about the COVID area in particular. I don't need to tell you all that when you think about it, our frontline workers and the essential workers were key during this last 3-month period. I can tell you that you all know from your communities that you serve, between the storms, tornadoes, hurricanes that hit your particular cities, no matter if they're small or large, no matter if there's a pandemic or not, we have to be there to be able to serve our customers. And I can tell you that the essential services that were provided, particularly to those frontline workers and provided to the communities, is really important. And I can tell you that that was no easy, and it still is no easy feat when we're expecting one of the worst hurricane seasons on record. So I will tell you that we are trying to do our best, and so far doing a pretty good job of it. But we've got to continue that. The expectations, as you can imagine, when you have entire cities and states working from home, we all know the important connection that electricity brings, especially at a time like this. We're in the beginning of summer. I don't need to tell you all what that means with regards to heating and cooling our homes, particularly during this time of the year. But I want to touch on that just a little bit, because we've really got to be out right now, because as you know, in the states, we work with the state commissions, but the states actually have the tools. You all have the tools in the states to be able to work with customers and to meet them where they are, because this is not a one size fits all. COVID has affected both states, intensely, and some others not so much. But at the same time, what we've got to do is meet customers, as I said, where they are. We actually did a voluntary moratorium at the beginning of the pandemic and said we were not going to be disconnecting anyone during this time. Our colleagues, I know, across the board in water, gas, and telecom ended up following. We thought that was a real leadership position to take here, because we knew our customers were going to be suffering hardships, and we knew they were going to be looking to us to provide leadership on what their sort of payment options were going to be, what kind of flexibility programs would we offer them. And I can tell you many of our member companies, they're also providing resources to small business customers, as you can imagine it. And I know how hard that our small businesses have been hit in your communities. And I think that we have to be able to have our customer support staff available to be able to help the small business customers, the very large commercial industrial, and everyday Americans that are residential customers of ours. And we've got to be able to help them and provide leadership to navigate local and state and federal financial resources and programs to be able to direct them to. That is our responsibility, and the buck stops here. So we've got to be able to get out and do that. We're out in communities noting that and being able to advise and communicate to customers on what those options are for them now. So again, many of these, I know you all know what they are, but when we talk about waiving late fees or credit card fees or one-time bill credits or fuel adjustment credits, climate credits, allowing customers to change their due dates, enrolling customers in budget billing programs to smooth out their payment, we need to be able to, again, provide more and more and more solutions. And I can tell you that there's some real cutting edge things out there that's happening that our companies are also learning from companies that are on, I could say, are in more COVID affected areas and are learning what their customer needs are from all different customer classes and what we can do to better serve them. And one of those ideas was really getting out into the communities as the reentry started to be able to be visible with our customers. Because we know that if you throw something in the mail or you're shooting them an email, it's kind of passive. We know customers are getting so much communication right now anyway, especially when they're working from home and they're doing many of their job responsibilities at home. So we really need to be able to meet them out there where they are and show them what their options are. So I just want to give you a sense of that so you would know what programs are out there. You all are already familiar with the Liheap program, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. We work with Congress on that. We currently are advocating for $4.3 billion for Liheap. We're incrementally getting more money into that community program. That money does not go to our companies. It actually goes to the community programs to be able to allocate those funds to customers. So you all understand how important that is during a pandemic, is being able to give that type of assistance. I'll give you something because you all are being mayors, you are fiduciary responsible mayors, and you know what you have to be able to do with regards to the funds that you have. I would tell you that if we funded Liheap in the pandemic to its full funding for the people that actually need it, do you know that that number would actually be closer to 19 billion than 4 billion? So what we're asking of Congress is, we'd like a whole lot more for our cities, certainly, and our communities. But we really appreciate working with the U.S. Conference of Mayors, NCSL, our governors on this. It's been really important for us to be able to stress how important that assistance is to the communities out there. And also, when you're in the middle of a pandemic, you can imagine that we also need the community support to outlay those dollars, right? From a managerial perspective, we've got to be able to make sure those funds get out more quickly, just like the small business program, was slowed up by actually allocating those funds. We're no different. We've got to help our community partners be able to manage those funds and actually allocate them a little bit faster in the communities that they are there to serve. So I'm going to switch now to our clean energy innovation agenda. And I can tell you that I shared that we are largely in agreement with Congressman Tonko. I'll give you an idea of where we are today. I've been in the industry for 11 years. I'm going on my 12th year in the industry. I came to the industry in the end of 2008, beginning of 2009. And I can tell you that we have a very different industry today with regards to our clean energy transition and actually how fast that has moved. Today, you'd be surprised to know that nearly 40% of all of our electricity comes from now carbon-free sources. That includes nuclear, includes hydropower, and of course, it includes wind and solar. And then overall, our emissions from the electric power sector are at the lowest they've been since 1987. And I want to tell you that at the end of 2019, and I'm going to give you a couple of numbers here that I want you to remember. At the end of 2019, okay, we are 45% below, okay, 6 months ago, 45% below 2005 levels, which is the baseline everyone uses, okay, 45% below, okay. The President Obama's Clean Power Plan called for 32% below by 2030. Okay, so we're a decade early and a little bit beyond that. All right, the Waxman-Markey cap and trade legislation that Congressman Tonko has kind of a version of that he's putting forward, that was 17% below 2005 levels by 2020. By this year, 17, we're at 45. So I think I want to go back to something Congressman Tonko said. And he said that the progress that has happened so far has happened without legislation. He's absolutely right. All of that happened without any federal mandate. It's just the direction our industry is headed, and headed there quickly. We are trying to figure out currently that last 20%. We know right now our industry is committed to getting 80% below by 2030, well, roughly by 2030, and then net zero by 2050 is where many of our companies are. So I wanted to give you just those to be able to think about those comparison numbers and to think about where we are right now. Like I said, many of our companies, because no region, and I know where I'm speaking right now, the mayors, when you think about the regional differences across the country, you're going to have some that can get there sooner because of resources than others. All right, so that's a little bit of not the one size fits all, that we've got to bring people along in this clean energy journey, and that's certainly what we're focused on doing. So I mentioned a couple of things earlier with regards to electric transportation is a big focus of ours. Electric transportation, the transportation sector in general ended up overtaking our sector, the power sector, 2 years ago in emissions. They are now higher in emissions. We're going lower, they're going higher. We have seen a little bit of a setback with regards to electric vehicle sales, certainly during the pandemic. We think that'll be temporary. But we do need to make progress there. Our companies have never been more positioned, like Congressman Tonko said, with regards to being prepared to deploy infrastructure out in the states, creating those EV corridors out there, port electrification and other examples of electrification out there. But our work in the states is really about being able to deploy that infrastructure so those cars will show up and so we can have that clean environment that we want and are striving for. Another issue that I mentioned was broadband middle mile. And Congressman Tonko talked about it. Absolutely, it is an opportunity during COVID-19 for us to think about broadband deployment just as a real significant policy issue that could have movement, that we could actually get broadband to these unserved and underserved communities that many of them that you all represent. Our role in that, this is not a space where our member companies traditionally have been involved, but let me tell you how we could play a role. And that is, we are best positioned, we are very well positioned to play in that essential role in facilitating that build out of broadband networks in rural and unserved and underserved communities out there. And that's going to address the growing communication needs, that electric companies and others are deploying fiber out there throughout their respective service territories. But I think specifically, we would serve as that middle mile broadband resource to enable other entities like those internet service providers and co-ops to reach unserved customers. So that's a partnership that we can come together and build with others to be able to assist you all. And we want you to know we're ready to do that. And at the federal level, we're actually seeking a middle mile grant program to help build out the infrastructure in the states quickly. So that's something we're trying to do at the federal level. We certainly would appreciate your support in that. And at the local and state levels, we are seeing support for laws to support the policy changes we need on easements, for example, the rights of way and cost recovery to achieve these broadband infrastructure projects are actually seen to completion. So we think this is a win-win for customers because these middle mile projects just enable these communities to finally get some service. So, and then lastly, I just want to touch on social justice because I really think if we're all not doing things that are actually actionable instead of just throwing money at the problem, I think we're going to end up being exactly where we are 10 years from now. So I'll just want to spend a couple of things. You know, the events across the country have really led our member companies to really probably foster a different commitment. We started about 2 years ago in the industry. We launched a very broad, inclusive diversity inclusion initiative that was really out there to really foster that culture of diversity, respect, and inclusion in our companies and communities that we serve. And I think that what we need to do is we need to right now move to the actionable items. And what we're doing is we're going to be creating a virtual leadership program for our industry specifically that will create a pipeline for rising Black executives. And that's what we could do to provide that pipeline up for them to help them rise up in the chain of our own companies. And next, we're actually exploring a program for our students. Because we know that if we're hitting students earlier, that we can provide early career developing opportunities for them as well. So that's another area that we want to look to. And then lastly, what we want to do is not one of our companies out there currently does not have a foundation that they work through in their communities. Many of them support you all in your communities that they serve and you serve. But I want to tell you that one of the things that we can do is we can actually align our grant work to organizations within the communities so that we can make the addressing the systemic issue a priority with the dollars and with the grant work that we're doing in these communities. So that's something that really 3 ideas. There are many more to come on the social justice front that we have a whole team working on. But I just want to let you know that that's a real priority for us as well. We have probably one of the largest diversity programs as far as an industry, and we're the only energy trade association to actually host meetings that's dedicated to the growth of minority-owned businesses and fostering that deep-rooted relationships in the supply chain for us. So that's something that we're very proud of to show leadership on. So I'll just wrap up there. I just wanted to cover those 4 things today and certainly take any questions that you might have if we have a few minutes.
Great. Very good. Thank you, Brian. Thanks for the presentation. You shoehorned a lot in there. We appreciate just how much you're doing right now. I'll open up for questions. Maybe I'll just kick it off with one question and just ask you to elaborate a little bit on the renewable energy plans of your members, if you can characterize them generally. Has COVID-19 caused them to pull back on any major investments in the renewable space? I mean, I'm sure some companies have and some haven't, but do you discern any general trends that you can share with us?
It's funny, Mayor Mitchell, we asked that question a few weeks ago. If any of their CapEx plans, as far as strategic plans that they lay out, how much were they adjusted and to what extent, particularly with regards to clean energy and larger projects. A little bit. I was really, I think that because of the way that we raise capital and spend it, I think that some of that really happens in the previous year to prepare for those investments. I do think that our industry is going to see a bit of an adjustment when we go into 2021. And that's a very good question that you posed, because I think that's when we're going to start seeing, if you think about it, the customers, and I say the residential customers that are really still unemployed, that'll go through the, that may end up being unemployed well into the fall. You all know, Mayor Mitchell, and all of you mayors, that many of the small businesses, and I've been shocked at many of the chains that have announced their closures, but many of the mom and pop single businesses that will never come back. And so I think that we've really got to look at, if you think about it, that is largely going to affect, the debt that the industry takes on from the larger customer base, right? And in some cases, the larger commercial industrial customers too, right? They're cutting back, if you know, department stores, large chain department stores to retail establishments. In the very large C&I space, same thing. So if that really slows to a point, and our companies are definitely seeing carrying a huge amount of debt as we go into 2021, there may be a broader adjustment, Mr. Mayor, to your point.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. All right, I'll open it up to the mayors for questions for Brian. Yeah, Mike Cahill, I can see your hand is up, and go right ahead.
Thank you, John. Brian, thank you so much for your presentation, and thanks in advance for anything you can share on this point. I'm a mayor of a small city of 40,000 on the North Shore of Boston, neighbor of John's on a good day on the roads. I understand, I have a general understanding that as we move towards electrification of the transportation sector and electrification of the building sector, that again, general understanding that the grid needs to modernize and needs to grow green. Could you just share a couple thoughts on what that really means to modernize, and where are the investments needed? What's the scope of it, et cetera?
Thanks, Mayor, for that question. It's actually a very, very good question right now. When you consider, grid modernization has been around for, I'd probably say, the last 5 years, that it was really termed as something that really talked about all of the different types of technology that could be placed on the grid. Electric transportation is just one of those. I think there are there's a couple different ways to look at that, because from a grid modernization aspect of it, you have from one end of it, say a bookend here, you have broader aging infrastructure, and I say that aging infrastructure, and I'm going to refer to a Midwest company now, but aging infrastructure in the sense that transformers and equipment so old that it's operating under a 60-year-old lifetime and actually rusting. So you have the aging infrastructure piece on one end, which accounts for, some of it. And then on the other end, you have, urban areas that are actually ready for broader grid modernization, that have a lot of infiltration of microgrids and other technologies on the system that need to be accounted for. On the electric transportation side, no different. If you think about the larger urban areas require more updated, grid in order to accommodate the influx and concentration of electric vehicles that you need to be able to serve. So it's kind of like you have it on two different spectrums there, one with regards to technology that's needed in the modernization aspect of it, and one just simply because of age, which is so much a part of our country. But, it's a very tricky thing with regards to state commission in general, because you at some points in time, you're dealing with different regions of the country, right? And you're dealing with different pain points at which customers can actually withstand rates. And one of the issues that we pride ourselves on is reliability and affordability. but we've got to be able to do that clean at the same time. So the balance of all three of those, Mr. Mayor, is most important while you're investing in and plotting out that modern grid infrastructure. And by the way, Mr. Mayor, that with regard to your question, that also includes the security of our grid and technology in our grid with regards to cybersecurity as well. So if you look at that, we're talking about those suite of technologies over here exist, but we do have in some parts of the country where we have a lower income base and where just they cannot withstand they cannot withstand higher rates. So that we've got to be judicial in how we go forward with modernizing aspects of that grid for that reason. Great question.
Thanks.
Yep, great question. All right, very good. Any other questions for Brian? All right, seeing none. Brian, as always, thank you to you and EEI for being such great supporters of the conference and for really just providing us, some, clear insight into industry trends, which is very useful as we make policy and support policy at every level. So again, thank you, and I'm sure we'll be talking to EEI in the not too distant future as things get back to whatever normal is next for us.
Absolutely, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Mitchell, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to say thank you all for your service. I know it's always doubly tricky in a time like this that there's no playbook for. And I just want to thank you all for your leadership.
Great, thank you, Brian. Thanks so much. So we will we'll go next to our last speaker, who is John Hartnett. So John is the president of Mayflower Wind, which is a joint venture of Royal Dutch Shell and EDP Renewables, which is a Portuguese-based renewable energy company. So you might ask, well, what do they have to do with anything that we're talking about? And the answer is, well, Shell is getting into the offshore wind business, like many of the other major oil companies, and we've been talking about offshore wind for a while now, and with more cities in play as potential offshore wind bases, not just on the East Coast, but in the Gulf, on the West Coast, in Hawaii, Mayor Caldwell, of course, and even in the Great Lakes. More mayors are interested in knowing, which way this industry is going, and especially now with the haze of COVID hanging over us, it's really useful, I think, to hear from an industry leader to get an understanding of not just COVID's implications, but for offshore wind, but like what's next, because there has been a lot going on with offshore wind in the last few months as projects have moved forward, permitting processes have continued on, and state procurement processes have moved forward. And so John is somebody who's been steeped in energy issues and matters for a long time employee of Shell, and somebody who successfully led Mayflower's bid here in Massachusetts for an 800 megawatt project, which will be one of the largest projects in the United States, which is slated to deploy in 2024. So with that wind up, John, I'm pleased that you're able to join us, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor. I really appreciate the opportunity to meet and talk to you and your colleagues. So thanks to you, and thanks to the rest of the mayors on the phone. I appreciate what time it is in your schedule. I will try to kind of move through some comments real quickly, take some questions, and recognize that I think you're running a few minutes behind. But so yeah, as Mayor Mitchell said, I've been with Shell Energy for close to 20 years. Started my energy career at Niagara Mohawk Power Corporation back in 1984, probably. So a electric and gas company in upstate New York that is been acquired by one or two different entities now. But I think a number of the topics that you all were talking about earlier this afternoon, and certainly the topics that Brian was talking about. And I was at Niagara Mohawk for close to 20 years, and very engaged with and involved with activities with EEI. So the grid, the move from dirty power production to clean power production, and then over the past couple of decades working for Shell and really seeing the energy from a different perspective. A lot of people think about Shell. Shell is big oil, right? We've really are trying not just with our image, but with our organization to be viewed as an integrated energy company with a very strong focus on environmental stewardship. I can't deny that today, as the second largest oil and gas company in the world, we also rank right up at the top of the bad list on polluters, on carbon producers, and the vast majority of the products that we extract, we produce, and we sell are we're the baseline of our business is a hydrocarbon business. So our customers buy our products, and those products result in more carbon emissions into the atmosphere. And we recognize that. We recognize where we need to go as a human race in that. And like a lot of cities, like a lot of states, we have set a goal of becoming a net zero producer by 2050. We very much agree in the positions that were put forth earlier when you were talking about some of the policy decisions as a conference of mayors that you were voting on the positions of Congressman Tonko as well. For Shell, we recognize that the world needs more and cleaner energy and electricity specifically. Brian just spoke about the electrification of the transportation sector. We think a lot about that in cars, electric vehicles. We also, and he mentioned it, the potential for electrification of marine fleets. We have been investing across the board in the electrification of transportation, in cars and trucks and fleets and in marine vessels, and with that investment in electrification, with the focus on renewable electricity, we see that the global energy industry is moving to an electric industry. We see it across all sectors of the economy. Here in the U.S., is very advanced. I mean, most of our residential and commercial energy is electricity. We do have natural gas and other fuels for home heating, but we see that shift continuing, and we also see a pretty significant shift in the industrial sector towards electric processes. For us as a major integrated energy company, we need to evolve along with the way the world is evolving, and we need to do it responsibly. So our aim is to be a net zero net zero on emissions from all of the manufacture of our products. So essentially, our level 1 emissions would be net zero. We're looking at reducing the carbon intensity of all the energy products that we sell. One of the ways that we see our ability to reduce the carbon intensity is to change the product mix of what we sell, to shift more from hydrocarbon products to electricity and renewable electricity specifically. But we're also investing a lot in biofuels and in hydrogen. And we see hydrogen as a fuel for transportation, for industrialization, and actually for electric production. And doing everything that we can to help our customers decarbonize, which really means that our business plans have to change as the society and customers' needs and preferences change. We have been, over the past several years, spending upwards of a couple of $2 billion a year in the clean energy space, and our ambitions are to continue to increase our investment and development in the renewable space. One small example of how we're doing that is Mayflower Wind Energy. As Mayor Mitchell mentioned, that's where I am within Shell right now. I'm the CEO of Mayflower Wind. This venture was formed in 2018, and really trying to take advantage of the technical strengths, the financial strengths of Shell and EDPR, and the real strong commitment to the energy transition of both companies. In 2019, we were awarded an 800 megawatt long-term power purchase agreement with the utilities in Massachusetts. We expect that we'll build out, we have a lease area off the coast of Massachusetts, and we expect that we'll build out anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 megawatts over the next several years from that site. Currently, we're actively developing environmental permitting, technical design, stakeholder engagement are the things that excite me, and kind of also the things that can kind of keep me up at night. We've got kind of 3 core values that we've established when we set up our company: safety first, safety always. This really, I think, comes out of some of it comes out of the oil and gas sector, where Shell has had a goal 0 target for the past several years, and we really try to live up to that. Right now, when we think about safety, it's navigational safety is a key focus. We have survey activities going on out at sea, and as we develop our projects, we need to take into consideration the navigational safety. We have a tremendous amount of commercial fishermen. New Bedford's the largest commercial fishery port in America, revenue-wise, and that's a very, very key stakeholder constituent of ours as we develop our site. That's kind of from a safety perspective. Innovation and industry development is a second area, which is critical to driving down costs and driving down negative impacts of the projects. And finally, investment in our communities. And again, the way I've gotten to know Mayor Mitchell is because New Bedford is one of our not only one of our key stakeholders, because it's an area that will be impacted by our development, but it's one of our key partners for our project. We've contracted with the Port of New Bedford as a fishery representative for our project to help us in the interactions with that key stakeholder group. And we plan on using the New Bedford Marine Commerce Terminal as a primary construction base for our project. And actually, the New Bedford Commerce Terminal is one of the key examples of early infrastructure investment done by some pretty smart people to see with the foresight of the industry. Me, I'm a developer. My focus is on building projects. Our industry really is being built out to bring renewable energy solutions to coastal states, especially in the Northeast. You look up and down the Northeast. Northeast states, virtually all the states have very strong, very aggressive green energy goals over the next few decades. However, they're not blessed with wide open spaces. They're not blessed with strong onshore resources for renewable development. And the offshore is a very strong, very strong resource, and it enables these states to meet their goals. Right now, in federal waters in the U.S., there's 2 wind turbines that are actually, there's one that's installed, and the second one is being installed right as we speak. We have 5 in state waters off of Block Island, Rhode Island, but a whopping 2, which will be I think 12 megawatts of generation. We anticipate upwards of 20,000 megawatts of generation coming online in this decade alone. So this is an industry that is facing explosive growth and explosive development over the coming decades. And we have 20,000 by the end of this decade. I think I talk about 50 by 50, 50 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2050. Again, me, I'm a developer. My focus is on building a project. I and my fellow developers, we're not a jobs program. However, our industry will create something on the order of 80,000 jobs by 2030. We're not an economic development program, but we anticipate investing over $70 billion in this decade alone. And as developers, we're not an infrastructure program. I mentioned the investment, Massachusetts and New Bedford, of over $100 million, upgrading the terminal there for the offshore wind industry. New York is looking at spending over $200 million on port upgrades. New Jersey, I think, just announced over $400 million in port upgrades alone to support the industry. As this industry grows and develops and builds out, we will see tens of billions of dollars in the infrastructure built out for the industry. So it'll be very, very big, very, very, very big in terms of jobs, in terms of organized labor. We'll all enter into project labor agreements that I expect with the unions. All of our projects, ourselves included, we're making tens of millions of dollars of investments over the next several years in port upgrades and infrastructure upgrades. So significant benefits there. However, I have to remind myself. I have to remind our supply chain partners. I have to remind our stakeholders. I have to remind sometimes even our our environmental NGOs, to not lose sight on why we're here. The offshore wind industry is being developed in the US for primarily one reason, and that is to bring renewable power to the grid so that we are effectively combating our climate crisis. In preparing for this, I thought about some of the strong statements that Governor Baker puts out here in Massachusetts, and I thought I'd just grab a few quotes from some of the Northeast governors. Governor Baker: "Yesterday's solutions and yesterday's plans are no longer sufficient. We must continue to take bold action to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions." Governor Lamont: "Climate change is an urgent existential threat that must be tackled immediately." Governor Cuomo: "The environment and climate change are the most critically important policy priorities we face." Governor Murphy from New Jersey: "Here's my message to the skeptics and the climate deniers. It is really this simple. Offshore wind is a win for our environment, a win for our economy, and a win for our future." I wish I said that instead of Governor Murphy, but he said it, and I can repeat it. So for us, we at Mayflower Wind, we recognize the reason and rationale for our project. It's to help our states. It's to help our local communities meet the environmental challenges that we have in front of us. For Shell, this is one example of a list that for some reason we don't publicize as much as I think we should, but the investments, the businesses, the activities that we have around the globe that are really leading, I see is leading the transition globally to a clean, renewable environment are pretty astounding. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, y'all. I just wanted to, quick comments, quick perspective, and more than happy to answer any and all questions you have.
Yeah, thank you, John, for the presentation, and we appreciate sort of the first principles approach you took, because I think, I'm sure it's striking people as very interesting just how aggressively a company like Shell is getting into renewables, and you're not alone among your competitors. And so it's in some ways, in many ways, these are indications that as far as offshore wind goes, the horse is out of the barn. It is moving forward, and which is good news for all of us who care about the development of renewable energy. I'll ask a quick question, and then I'll open it up to mayors. I know we've run over our time. If you could just summarize, among federal policies, never mind state policy, but federal policies that would accelerate development of the industry, what would you put at the top of the list? Is it facilitating permitting? Is it fisheries issues? Is it the investment tax credit? Is it what's most important?
Yeah, I actually, it is permitting issues. I mean, investment tax credits are nice, right? Because they kind of socialize some of the burden. I mean, at the end of the day, as taxpayers, we cover all the bills. We're taxpayers and we're energy consumers, so we pay for it. But the investment tax credits do help spur things because it lowers initial costs to get an industry going. But the permitting, as you know, we don't have a project that's fully permitted yet. I think this vineyard project is going through the process right now, and hopefully that'll get over the hump by the end of this year, and will really set the stage. I think the Department of Interior, the Bureau of Ocean and Energy Management, they've held out their perspective on Vineyard, which is the first project that should get its permits, as the template. And once that gets through the process, we should have smooth sailing. Bullshit. Pardon my language, but I mean,
there are no children on this call, John.
Yeah, to get for active surveys that I have right now, I need incidental hazard assessment, IHA, in order for my vessel to operate 24 hours a day. I've had my application in for that for 7 or 8 months now. NIMS might respond by July 7th, fingers crossed. But it is a laborious effort to get an agency to do their work so that we can do our work. I had a site assessment plan is what it's called with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management to deploy a metocean buoy out in my lease area, so I can measure ocean currents, I can measure waves, I can measure the winds with the metocean buoy. That took over 6 months to get approval on. I actually deployed my buoy outside of my lease area because I didn't need their approval to deploy a buoy and start collecting data and sharing the data with research institutes and academics outside my lease area. It took over 6 months to get their approval to move it a couple of kilometers into my lease area. It's these small, they're small parts, and then the real big parts. The overall construction permit that we're working on are those processes remain problematic. We have a president who pushes for.
So the answer is emphatically, it's the problem's permitting.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let me, no, that's very helpful, John. All right, let me open it up to see if there are any other mayors who want to jump in. I know we've run late, but that's okay. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. All right, I think.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike Cahill. Yeah, go ahead.
Not at all a question, just, John, we'd love to see that 800 megawatts active yesterday. So I appreciate Mayor Mitchell's leadership on this and just keep plugging. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, John, thank you again for presenting today. Again, it's with every one of our meetings, we've had updates on offshore wind, and there's clearly a march forward. It's not as fast as anybody would like, but I think we've looked at over the last few weeks, we've looked at COVID positive case curves that have we see steady growth and then exponential growth. That's bad, but in offshore wind, it's good, and it's likely to happen. We're going to see really explosive growth once we break through some of these barriers, and I think it's going to implicate a number of cities across the country on every coast. So thank you again. This does it for our meeting. Great meeting, guys. I want to thank Rich Anderson and Dave Burns and Tim Wynn for all of their support in putting this together. It's unfortunate that we can't see one another face to face, of course, but this was really well done, and I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank Tom for all of his support as well along the way, and just making sure that all of this happens. This meeting and all the other policy meetings are happening so that mayors can stay informed and can remain plugged in, because the work, despite COVID, doesn't stop. So we appreciate that, and I appreciate Brian and Greg and Nan for all of their leadership. And it's great to see all of you guys. Hopefully we'll see you face to face soon enough. But again, I want to thank everybody and wish you well until the next call.
Great job,
Thank
man.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.